We have two individuals from the U.S. Embassy in Santiago, Chile here with us today, Brian Manning and Dr. Ed Johnson. And to start our briefing, I'd like to ask President Hargis to make a few remarks, maybe about how this all came about.
Yeah. Well, as you know, OSU has extensive interest internationally and has for many, many years. And so every June, usually, Ann and I try to visit some of the universities that we work with around the world to hopefully expand the, not only exchange of students, but faculty as well. And this year it was South America. And so we actually ran into a Marine lieutenant in Brasilia who worked out of the embassy, and we ended up going over to the embassy and we learned about a lot of the programs. And then they set up a meeting with the embassy in Santiago. And we were, Brian, who is here, who is our OSU graduate, unfortunately was not there that day, but Ed Johnson was, along with others. And we had a very fruitful conversation and talked about him coming to OSU and seeing our operations here, because we want to continue to expand and develop our international relations, and having someone with his background makes that great. We saw a lot of synergies with our UAV programs and other things, so that's how it all happened. So I'm going to let David give the formal introduction since he's the international guru. But that's just kind of how all this happened. So, David?
Thank you, President Hargis. Well, I want to introduce two people, and I'll start with Brian Manning because he's here as a Foreign Service officer, and he'll be available during the question and answer period and afterwards if you want to ask any questions. Brian is a graduate of Oklahoma State, Farmhouse fraternity, and he has served 2 tours of duty so far. He was in Croatia and then in Santiago, Chile, which I think you must be doing well because those are 2 really nice places. You know, we'll send you to the Congo next if you don't perform. But Brian went to my home state at the University of Minnesota to attend law school. And after finishing law school, he came back to practice in Oklahoma. And he was in the law firm of Andrew Lester, who is currently the chairman of our Board of Regents. And from there, he joined the Foreign Service, which, of course, is a very noble profession. And so we're very happy to have you here, Brian, and so you can share a little bit of your expertise with us. And my second introduction is for our speaker today, Dr. Ed Johnson. And he has a large territory, stretching from the North Pole all the way to the South Pole. The entire Americas is his territory. So his area of responsibility is quite large. I think maybe they didn't like him because they located him way at one end of it, down in Chile. So he has to travel quite a bit. And in his background, let me tell you a little bit about it. He has experience in small business development. He served as the president and a member of the board of directors of ABC Coding Solutions. And later he had a career in the Navy, and he was a retired U.S. Navy officer. He was an anti-submarine warfare expert in the Navy. Certainly that's a profession we're glad exists in terms of keeping our national security safe. And he flew carrier-based S-3A Viking aircraft. So it seems like that was a very exciting time in your life. And today, Dr. Johnson is the technical director of the International Technology Center for the Americas, part of the U.S. Army Research, Development, and Engineering Command. And why we invited him to OSU is that what ITC does is it matches international science and technology capacities and capabilities to U.S. requirements and programs. In other words, they're making matches between U.S. universities and research programs and other such programs in the Americas. And ITC does this by forming partnerships that have mutual benefits to our nations, our militaries, our industries, and our universities. And Dr. Johnson has spent the last day and a half in meetings here at OSU. He's met with individuals in our aerospace program. And it's my great pleasure, please help me welcome to the program, to the podium, Dr. Ed Johnson.
My pleasure. All right, how many submarines are in Oklahoma? I did a pretty good job of keeping them out. So after I finished that job, it was time to move on to other things. But President Hargis, Mrs. Hargis, thank you so much. Our meeting, I think, was propitious. To Councilman Watkins, I really enjoy your outlook and your vision. This is a superb center and a superb bunch of people. Brian, I'm glad you're with me. Because I've got a small group and I think I know just about everybody. So my style is to work you, the crowd. I'm not the speaker. You're going to be the speaker. I'm just going to set up the forum to do it. And David, thank you so much. I've had a fabulous time here. And to repeat, I've met a lot of you already. And I'm really impressed with the folks that you've got working this broad subject of international engagement. And I think you and I kind of connected right away down in Santiago. And basically the question for me to you is, what are you doing here? What's your goal? What are you up to? You did pick up that I've got a large territory. And the only way I can manage my responsibilities is to understand what's going on within the territory, keep up to date with it, move through with a strategy, an engagement plan, and then to execute it. And by the way, once you put together a plan, you better be updating that immediately because things change so much. It's really hard to keep current. So I'm going to be describing a little bit over the next hour or so. That includes your questions. And by the way, I'd like you to leave at 4:30. Just head out the door. That's what I'm expecting of you. So let's help you too. I want you to leave. And by the way, we had prior conversations, so I'm not just being Anthony, you stay. But you know, if you don't update your plan, it's not worth a darn. And things change so much. For example, in the embassy, you folks rotate every couple of years. So you may think that you understand an embassy's mission and you've got good contacts. Tell you what, things change so much, you gotta keep on going back. And that's really part of my job is to make those friends. And by the way, I can't make friends without your help. So whenever we go off to, let's say, Paraguay, the first thing I do is to contact the embassy there. I contact people like Brian so I can understand what the mission of the embassy might be so that I don't contradict anything. And besides, you then introduce me to others. And I start from the top down. And eventually work my way to universities and maybe have a partnership going, maybe have a seed project going on. Maybe eventually we can transition some of that technology. All right. 2 feet last time I looked. I've got to be really careful about where I go, what I spend. This time right now is really valuable to me because we're putting together a plan at a high level and hopefully we'll move forward with something in the future to our mutual benefit. I'm going to be spending some time talking about my process. And forgive me, but you know, I've got to start with some real basics. What are the requirements? How do I filter them out? But then I want to shift on over and let's talk about nations. Let's talk about areas within my area of responsibility that are important to me and why, and some things that we may know about. And you all have great experience as I look around this crowd, because I've heard a lot already about work in Haiti, El Salvador, Bolivia, work with USAID or with USDA and things of that nature. So you already have an international program. 1,000 points of light going on, 1,000 different activities. And maybe over time we can coordinate them in an integrated sense and figure out what the big picture is. Because right now, I think most universities do this in an ad hoc manner. In other words, you are the professor. You've had students in the past who've returned to their home nations, and they're great students. You want to maintain that connection. And they have learned from you. And by the way, you've got funding. So that relationship continues and off it goes. Now my job is to bring stuff eventually into the U.S. that might solve great problems. It might be an alternative energy. It might be some biofuels coming out of Brazil. It might be information on dengue fever coming out of Argentina. good omen. It was a gorgeous day. I think you have more than one here. And as I walked, the Americas were just lit up by that rising sun. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I walked around the other side, and then Africa was too, so I was trying to figure out that's not my territory yet. But I thought it was really pretty cool. As I go along, please don't hesitate to say, what do you mean by that? Don't hesitate to tell good stories. I shall try to do the same. But I'm also going to be paying attention to the clock to make sure that we at least get through some of the presentation, which over time I've decided is not just one presentation. But if I may, we've already described a little bit of how I ended up here, but I do like the small world to the right. Any of you who are from the hydro area would recognize that water tank, and then the base of it is where my wife's grandparents lived, and we still have a farm there. So when you talk Oklahoma, I said, well, you know, I know a little bit about Oklahoma. Yes, indeed, my wife's grandparents went to school here in the 30s. To the left, however,
We have a road scholar from
well, I might know the name. Small town, needless to say. And Pia cannot answer this, but to the left is the city of, and Brian can't hear it, Santiago. Large city, about 8 million people. I'm up here suffering a little bit from allergies, and I think I'm allergic to clean air. So one thing we suffer down there is air pollution. Big city, the area that the embassy is in, that we live in, Los Condes, is like being in Manhattan. So it's got this little nickname, San Manhattan, Santiago, Manhattan. This is, hey, I'm going to talk, but you know, some of the things that I want you to leave with are the issues that I put up there. I don't know your goals. Without knowing your goals, I can't give you advice on how to get there. But I know mine, and so that's what the presentation is based upon. Et cetera, et cetera. I've got some metrics for you. I can tell you how long it takes me and my team to go into a nation cold and to work a problem, to drill down and finally assess whether or not I want to continue a partnership. Because even if you don't find anything, at least you've assessed that nation's capabilities and capacities. And yeah, things change so much and so rapidly that you need to go back and do it routinely. All right, if you notice, I'm pretty sure I posed a question to you. Why engage internationally? And I've not put up any answers. I think this is the crowd, though, that kind of understands and gets it. The world has changed so dramatically that we as a nation have to engage internationally. And you know what? We've not done a good job of it. I can't even tell you when. You, sir, have great history and great stories. I only see the decline of U.S. influence overseas. All too often we've gone in with too much arrogance. We've gone in with too much power. We've gone in with different expectations without understanding culture, et cetera, et cetera. That bottom graphic there shows you the magnitude of the rest of the world. I think we as a nation made a decision that we want the rest of the world to be as equally capable as we are, because that leads to world stability. When people are happy in their jobs, happy where they are, doing their jobs well, we've got a much more stable world than when people aren't. The cost is American jobs, U.S. jobs. And Pia, I caught myself as I said American jobs. By the way, when you're down in South America and you say, well, we Americans, everybody says, hey, we are too. We're South Americans. So some of the nations that I showed down there and highlighted, you can see Brazil is a darker color, China's a darker color, Europe's in pretty good shape. I mean, that's where a lot of the action is. And my office in Latin America, I also do North America, is there in recognition of the great changes in governments down in Latin America, the great changes in economies, the more stable democracies, and the great potential of nations like Brazil. Oh, I'm so sorry. Do folks like reading The Economist here? I sure do. I really find that it gives me a really good practical assessment of what's going on in the world. And the issue to the upper right is something from September of 2009, and it was a Latin American-centric issue. And I really enjoyed one of the editorials in there basically said, hey, this is the decade of Latin America, because things have changed. got good governments, we've got money down there, they've got financial wealth, they're able to invest and they want to change for the good. It's the decade of Latin America. One of my Army friends, a very senior fellow, said, well, when I visit China, they say it's the millennia of China. And my response is, well, you know what? I can manage a decade. I can do things on a decade influence. I can't manage the millennia, so I'm going to focus on what I can do, practically speaking. But again, the economist, and one of my points later on is going to be read, and learn as much as you can. Be conversant, so when you go into a new situation, you know the history. You're able to discuss things off of cuff, off of fly. And people are so happy when they know that you understand their history, or their culture, or where they're coming from, and you're open to learn. So in short order there, I just mentioned some key attributes to somebody who's going to be doing international work. Oh, by the way, I'm in an international center. I see more extroverts and interesting people that I usually see in any other place. I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing. Great team. All right, I'm switching from that graphic that I had earlier where you see the world, and we're focusing on my organization because I'd like to tell you a little bit about me, although I'm a very shy person. The Army has 3 centers like mine. There's one in Tokyo, one in London, and mine down in Santiago. And our job literally is to do technology search to solve problems, but also to make friends. And we call that theater security cooperation. Make friends, make allies, make people who understand you and what we do, what we as a nation represent. And the people who are interested in this theater security cooperation are using soft power. Because when I go in, I talk about things like disaster relief, humanitarian assistance, water purification, global change, alternative energy. Subject areas that are really hard to argue against. And we do the research down at the basic level. So that when I fund a project, the intellectual property is owned by the university that does the work. And we also have the ability to move that intellectual property forward. A great way to make friends. Very quickly, I represent an organization of 18,000 scientists and engineers clumped in different particular subject areas that you recognize as Army Center of Force. These folks have fantastic capabilities and capacities. Like most federal agencies, it's an aging workforce. Not enough engineers, not enough scientists coming in. But I would also be remiss if I wasn't recruiting. Saying these are fantastic engineering and science jobs that are right at the cutting edge and state of the art. Upper left, basic research, Army Research Lab. And so these are the guys that are most like a university atmosphere. Studying the grand problems that we as a nation face, or whatever technologies identify as being major things that have to be addressed. The others are more focused, you can see by the subject areas. They're interested in helping the soldier, so that when he goes into combat, he or she is not carrying 80 pounds of gear. That's what they're trying to carry. 80 pounds of gear. You know what? I can't do that for very long. 16 pounds are batteries. You carry more batteries than you do ammunition. But let me go ahead and switch from this view to the process. And I'm not going to read through this. David, what I intend to do is leave you graphics, and they can be shared. But I want you to just understand that I've got to go through a rigorous process, and I've got to evaluate how well that process is doing. And I've got to be very honest and fair. So, for example, if I go, is anybody from Paraguay? I mentioned Paraguay in passing. Paraguay is one of the most poor nations in Latin America. Yeah, 150 years ago it wasn't. It was a very wealthy nation. But on the order of 1870 or so, the government of Paraguay decided they needed access to the ocean, like many nations have desired over time. And they declared war on Argentina. Well, Paraguay numbered about 1 million people and Argentina about 3. The war dragged on, so Uruguay joined in against the Paraguayans, and so did Brazil. It was a vicious war. result, Paraguay was absolutely impoverished. It basically has never recovered. That's a good point. This happened in the 30s where the dictator decided that he needed swampland from Bolivia. And he sent his army to the northwest and attacked Bolivia. And Merritt, I think, were you in Bolivia also? So you know about that war. It was an absolutely senseless war. If I'm not mistaken, it was the first war, modern war, that people were concerned about having water from day to day. And then the war was controlled and fought by access to drinking water, very unusual type of situation. I get guidance from higher level, and I'll describe some of that. One of my guidance as director I got was, hey, we haven't been to Uruguay yet, theater, security, sport. Go check out Uruguay's capabilities, capacities. And so we did spend about a week doing that, and came up with reports saying, well, you know, Uruguay universities have good capabilities in software. But kids who graduate with degrees in software go to Europe and join the gaming industry. So I really can't work that angle. Of interest, does everybody know that peacekeeping operations are paid by the UN? What nation provides more peacekeepers per capita than any other nation? And I've already given you the answer. This is too easy. Uruguay. Uruguay's got more experience in peacekeeping than anybody else. I think they first started in 1929. And they're really proud of it. So although they may not have university capability capacity, I go to Uruguay to learn about what problems they face when they're peacekeeping. Now, and by the way, peacekeeping is not an easy thing to do, because often these folks are in between two warring parties. And if you're in the middle, that's a bad place to be. If your guidance in the middle is don't shoot back, you're in real trouble. And that happens time and time again. But if I want to learn about the peacekeeping problems so that I can come up with better technologies, I go to Uruguay. And they say, well, you know what, we need water filtration systems that are lightweight, that have high capacity, that are cheap. We need to build stuff from local materials. We don't need to be hauling so much fuel with us. We need to have alternative manufacturing techniques. So what I'm saying is you get involved, you learn the problem, you put it in the mix, you put it in your engagement plan, you move forward, and maybe out of this, with the U.S. Army, with the Southern Command, maybe funding some of these technologies that help people do their job better. All right. I brought up the point of Uruguay, Paraguay. There's a point where you sit back and say, you know, I'm not going to push this any further. I need to shelve it because I'm going to go to Brazil. Spend my time more practically. That's where the payback is. So that's why we call it a go or no-go decision. Do I move forward with it? Now, do I alienate people because I'm not going back? Maybe. So that's where you can be graceful about it. Sometimes we promise, well, we're going to hold a workshop. It'll be in the United States. I will invite some of your people from Uruguay into a workshop. I really like the idea of a workshop. It's an easy thing to do. It's low cost. We invite people from South America up here, teach them about something, and there's a lot of goodwill that comes out of it. So keep that in mind. If I continue through the process and I ask for white papers and I choose some things for funding, that process from start to finish takes about 1,200 man-hours. And you know, that's a lot of time. So when I get guidance to go investigate 5 or 6 different nations, you go ahead and multiply that by about 1,200. And that's a pretty rigorous and viable number there. If I have a visitor like the president of the university who comes down to visit, prep that. You may know. To prep it, to get all the clearances, to set up the meetings, to try to get a product out of it, takes about 500 man-hours. Now that includes us escorting our visitor. Well, you know what? I'm sorry. 1,200 hours to do a nation, 500 hours to do one visitor. I'm sorry, I don't have enough man-hours. So when you come down, I often would say to the VIP coming in, here's what I'd like you to leave with. I want you to open these doors. I want you to get concurrence at a high level so that we can now work the deal in the background. And by the way, bring in about out $15,000 for a workshop and leave that, or $30,000 for a project. Leave something. And we'll be nudging you to say, okay, that's good, that works within our vision and it fits, it works well. But I think it's really valuable, the concept, leave something behind with you. We've learned from the School of Hard Knocks. In 2009, the then director of DARPA came down with great fanfare. Now, this was before my tenure of my office put this visit together. And DARPA has a fantastic reputation globally. I'm not sure if any of these have that's Advanced Research and Project Agency, DARPA, the inventors of the internet and many other things. DARPA came into existence because it was recognized that the normal acquisition and R&D process was too slow. And DARPA just really thinks quick and puts things out there that are really unusual. A little experiment that they did, I think about a year ago, they launched a lot of balloons. And within the balloons, they put a little message. And the university that could track where those balloons went by social media, the quickest one. So we put up all these balloons, they go up to, I don't know, 10,000 feet, they drift along the top, they drop their little message. If I'm not mistaken, and I don't remember who won the competition, again, it's from social media, people reporting this back in. It took less than a day to figure out what they went. I thought that was a pretty remarkable demonstration of something which has value. You figure it out, I'm not quite there yet. But I was just showing the power of social media. Forgive me, you may note that I ramble, but I'm trying to capture the attention in your eyes of this crowd and keep it going. Well, what happens when you tweet or use whatever social media tool that you're used to using? You send out a lot of information in that tweet. That might have location, might have time. We know exactly where you are. And if you're complaining about traffic somewhere, that all can be picked up and analyzed in almost real time. And so an agency can say, well, you know, there's a traffic jam happening on 6th in Washington, in Stillwater. And so we're going to monitor the tweets, and my gosh, if it's warranted, we'll have police records and maybe an ambulance there. That really happens. And it's completely unclassified. Universities do this type of research. University of Virginia, for example, University of Canada. I find it rather intimidating. Absolutely intimidating. But still it tells somebody for beneficial use that, hey, I better pre-position help to this area because I'm expecting, you know, an accident or something to happen. That's not good. So that falls into the category of social behavior modeling. And I think I better move on my slides. You get the idea. Work in a nation, getting it down to a point where you can do white papers, take proposals, 1,200 man hours. A visitor, 500 man hours. Well, how big is your office? How much can you really do? How are you going to direct me? Here's how I guide them. Let's start at the top. Brian, were you here when President Obama visited? I think I mentioned that my wife, is at the farm. She was down when President Obama visited. Just coincidentally, she exports olive oil from Chile. So she wanted to go down and meet the president of the olive oil company. So we met the president of the olive oil company in the morning and then ran down to see the other president. So she had a priority straight. All guidance in my job comes from this point. President Obama meets with his counterparts, for example, in Brazil, President Dilma Rousseff. They make a... I went 2 slides. It's probably an indicator that I should move faster. So, subjects of mutual interest filter down through this, and it filters down quickly. When the president meets, it makes it a high-level agreement. Secretary of State responds, follows that guidance. Secretary of Defense and other agencies follow that same guidance. And it's pretty well coordinated at that level. It finally gets down for action, and that's where I live. But I provide feedback up. And we also attend these different meetings send out thousands of people, and more often than not, we have no clue who's doing what across the integrated sense. That's a little awkward. If you can coordinate stuff that you're doing here, I think you're going to come up with processes and procedures that others can follow also. So I'm a big fan of integrating the effort. Guidance coming down from one point and then understanding what's going on. You may notice that I'm allergic to clean air. So forgive me. You've got the floor.
Focus on the conversation that we had, internationally coordinating with both foreign governments and the U.S. government, that's absolutely key.
Now, here's where coordination does happen, though. With you, with the ambassador, with the country mission. So when we go anywhere, we always work through the ambassador and his staff and people like Brian. That's where the coordination happens. All right, now we're talking again high level, and I'm trying not to drill down to some really specific subject areas. Is anybody familiar with the book, I Knew 20 Problems of